Hey, good morning everybody. Welcome back to Sunshine Acres. Jason here. We're up in the kiln container this morning and finally getting ready to start doing some real work to get this this kiln unit installed. So the first step in order operations we're going to do is we're going to cut the hole in this wall, get that end wall framed up and ready to accept the kiln. Stage 2 will be to install the 4x4 across the top for the baffle. Stage 3 will be to do our interior finishes. That'll be a floor finish and then spray foam insulation on the walls and ceiling. Next step will be to actually install well, let's back up for a second. Before we actually install the kiln, I'm hoping to get the 8-foot lean-to, well, it turned into a 9-foot lean-to on this side, but get the lean-to put in before we install the kiln unit on the container. But that may or may not happen from a timing standpoint, so we'll deal with that as it comes. But for today's video, we're going to cut a hole in this wall. Don't know if you can see. Let me get behind the camera for a second. So here's the wall that we're going to cut the hole in. Now you can see a little better. I've got those lines, top and bottom, and it's really along this ridge here on both sides. So that's what we're going to be removing. Of course, as soon as I turn that camera back on and get a little helicopter action, I'll be back. And that's all the time out here at Sunshine Acres, something flying over top of us. So to get ready for this, I'm gonna do a couple things. I brought the generator up here because we're gonna need some actual tools, bigger than battery stuff to do this. And the other thing is I was watching a video yesterday. Father-son duo was installing an IDRY Air. They were actually doing it on a built shed instead of a container. And they said they had issues as far as the dimensions. So I've laid this out per IDRY's recommendations as far as rough opening. I'm actually slightly smaller just because of how this seam lays out on this container. But I have the kiln here, so I'm gonna go ahead and move the kiln down the utility building. I'm gonna unbox it and double check our measurements, what we have laid out versus the actual kiln. Make sure we're happy with that, because the problem they had was they said they had, when they went to put the lag screws in to secure the kiln to their building, they almost didn't have enough meat on the bone to get a screw in there. So I want to double check that, make sure I'm happy with that before we start cutting the hole. So come along, we're gonna move the kiln down, unbox that, and then get started. So glad you're here. I put these deck screws in here just so you can kind of see where that's going to mount with the flange to the outside of the container. And the dimensions are a little bit confusing. So like I said, it's a little hard to decipher where you want these dimensions to be. I'm not sure exactly where this guy sits on the brackets. It'll make itself clear after the opening is cut. But that's a pretty expensive container over there. I don't want to mess that up. I want to make sure that's nice and accurate. So everything I can decipher is we're good to go with the layout that we have inside the container to get our cutout opening, and then to frame down to our rough opening. We'll make all this work. But I am super glad we have the unit here, and I didn't cut that hole and frame everything out beforehand, because I could tell already how I envision framing a little bit of this. I'm going to want it to be bigger, so I've got more meat that we can attach this guy to. So come along, I'm going to get the saws out, and we're going to start cutting some metal. Come on. We're gonna let that blade cool off. Let my arms rest up a little bit. We'll hit it again. Having trouble getting the right angle with the circular saw in that corner with the motor on the one side. So I'm gonna get a 4-inch angle grinder and just try to get that little corner done. All right, well, as you can tell, I am not a metal worker, metal cutter, any of that kind of stuff. I don't have the right tools for it, but we muscled through, we got it done. Yeah, just using an angle grinder, a circular saw with some cheap metal blades. I used a bunch of them, but it was a fraction of the cost of even buying a good blade or the right tool. So we got it done. Now I've did a little ciphering, and we got some blocking to put in here and get this thing framed out, and we'll pick that up tomorrow. But yeah, this kind of kicked my butt today, as you can tell, but glad to have that done, and we'll check back in when we start framing. All right, for the next part of this video, we're going to be framing up this rough opening that we have cut in the container. I feel like kind of the heavy lifting's done. Now it's more of the technical minutia of trying to figure out parts and pieces and getting those together. So I'm not going to bore you with a whole lot of details there, but I'm going to just walk you around quick, give you a close-up, take some pictures so I can show you some before and after when the framing's done, and then any comments I had as far as it relates to the IDRY instructions or how they did it versus how we ended up doing it here. So let me bring you in a little closer. So here on the outside, obviously we'll have the 3 brackets that will go in to support the weight of the kiln. And then we're going to need to create some vertical members on the side as well as in the bottom for the brackets. And then let me take you around inside. So inside we're going to need some horizontal members here. That's I believe a 2x10 that we're going to put across there. And then we'll need to build a sill structure on the bottom as well. So it's really just kind of trimming everything out. So all this exposed, I mean, this is kind of dangerous here. I mean, I took an angle grinder and I cleaned up some of the edges, but still you don't want to leave those exposed. So all this will be trimmed out and looking good. So come along. All right, so it's been a few days, but we had all our structural pieces we pre-cut and we're ready to go. So what we're going to do now, as you can see, we've got these vertical pieces that'll go on each side, the long ones, and then we've got 3 at the bottom. And this will create, call it the rough opening to attach the kiln to. These bottom 3 supports all hold a bracket like this, and the kiln sits on it as so. Be careful here with your spacing. We're trying to get this guy to hit kind of like that. So it'll be somewhere in between, and then that bottom bolt will be below the bracket. Don't want that interference, but this is all we're doing. I think you can see this. I'll come around quick. And they're using treated 2x material for everything, and then we've just got these galvanized through bolts that we'll run through, and then we'll attach a piece on the inside as well. So these will sandwich the end wall of the container and provide some nice support to attach to. So that's the next step. We'll get this in, and then we've got some, at that point we'll kind of trim it out and make a true clean rough opening to attach the kiln to, and then take a look at the inside and see if we need to trim out anything there or if that's just good for spray foam insulation at that point. But come along, it's a little chilly this morning. See, I got long sleeve long pants on. It's starting to warm up already, so I'm sure I'll be in shorts and short sleeve before lunch. But for right now, it's a nice change to have that be nice and cool. But come along, we're going to attach these pieces. All right, so we got all our rough framing in. I knew there'd need to be some tweaking that went on. And the main thing was I forgot about the horizontal dimension in order to get the spacing that we need. I hope you can hear me over that neighbor's saw. We're actually gonna be fastening just outside where we have this vertical 2x4, and I did not want to cut into this corner post on either side. So that was intentional to get this piece in here. What we are gonna do is we moved the face out 1.5 inches. So I had this piece on these lower sides on the inside and the outside sandwiched. I took the inside ones, moved them out, which pushes the face of the attachment out 1.5 inches. So we'll do the same thing as well. I'm gonna cut another header to go on top of this. It'll be a wider verticals that come down here, and you can see these 2 holes here. So it will through bolt into the container itself. When we lag onto this thing, it should be nice and secure. So that's it. So we're gonna get those couple pieces. And then I probably won't show you much, but we are gonna run a 4x4 down the center of this thing on the inside to be able to attach the baffle to. So I'll get that installed as well. And then I'll show you the finished product once we're all complete. Almost there. All right, we have the kiln container is framed up, and we are ready for interior finishes. Looking good. All right, we're gonna call that a wrap. I'm tuckered out. It definitely warmed up a little bit, but it's the good heat now. It's not that just brutal beat your butt down in the ground, sweat, change your shirt 5 times. So I only changed shirts twice today, so that's getting better. But yeah, I call this a success. We've got the 4x4 run down the center here that will support the baffle curtain. We've got the front, we cut the hole out, we knocked that out. Got our subframing in here, we've got the rough opening. We are ready to attach the kiln now. On the outside, we've got to do some more siding and probably get this well, I don't know about the lean-to, but definitely get some more siding done further along so the guys putting in the lean-to, they can work over top of it. And you'll see that in another video, but just trying to get out of the way for those guys. We are officially ready for interior finishes, which will be hanging the baffle on this 4x4. It's getting the spray foam insulation on the ceilings and walls and getting a floor finish on the floor. So those 3 items hopefully will start happening next, as well as there'll be another video that just shows us running power, actually installing the unit onto the container, and then getting our moisture meter system set up as well. And just kind of touch up, you know, caulking, cut some of these bolts off. Let's paint all this wood so we protect it the best we can to make this thing last just as long as we possibly can. But as far as differences I had compared to IDRY notes, I definitely struggled with the horizontal dimension that they wanted for a rough opening. I knew what they wanted, but the container I have didn't quite fit. And if you've looked at containers before, especially with these side loads that open all the way up, those corners are really beefed up. I mean, that's a strong piece of steel, and I didn't want to compromise cutting into that horizontally. We did pierce it a couple times for some through bolts, but other than that, we wanted to leave those alone. I think it's going to be fine. This rough opening works for how it measures on the back of the kiln. So I think it's going to function just fine. Other than that, I pretty much kind of used what they had for guidelines. I didn't tweak much else. Got the header in, framed everything in kind of the way they showed it. So I didn't deviate, but definitely take a look. If you're doing this, I would recommend getting your kiln on hand before you cut your hole and before you do the framing. That way you can measure the actual unit. And if you need to tweak something, depending on what kind of container you have, or if you're building a shed, that may be different as well. But I think it's going to be strong. It looks good. We'll seal it up, doll it up, and go from there. But here, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, leave a comment, hit subscribe, tell your mama, tell your friends, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.